It was yet another long Saturday night on the door of the fire station in Whitley Bay, the ambrosia of life that is door work. I was working with my mate Luke. We started at 7:30 p.m. and had managed to turn away a steady stream of pissed up people, and had chucked out a couple of stag parties very early on. It was all pretty standard as things go, with maybe the exception of the super classy middle-aged ladies, dressed in burlesque outfits with muffin tops and more cellulite than an orange grove. They're not the most attractive bunch to look at, and when they open their mouths, my God, you never heard the likes of it. I had to Google some of the swear words just to see what the hell they meant. They ranged in age from early 20s up to the granny of the bride-to-be, with her teeth like a council fence and a straw in the shape of a cock hanging around her neck, which complemented her hairy top lip, which is manlier than moustaches on some young lads these days. When you get a big group of them like that, they can be bad enough to start with, but one of my all-time pet hates is whistles. They just come in and blow them so much it'd put a time-served prostitute to shame. So call me a spoilsport or a grumpy old bastard, as Granny Tash called me on the way in, but I confiscated all of the whistles, telling them they could have 'em back on the way out. Half an hour later, in a packed bar, above the cackles of Jabba the Hutt's daughters, I could hear the shrill of a whistle over and over and over again. As I went into the bar and started to look for the clever ass that had the whistle, I got the manager in my earpiece over the radio saying, "For fuck's sake, Stu, stick that whistle right up her jacksie, will you? It's doing my head in." "Oh, don't you worry, I bloody will," I replied, and so off I went in search of the phantom whistler. Yeah, you guessed it, it was old Granny Tash. She had a pink referee whistle hanging out of her mouth, blowing and blowing and blowing. She had the look of an over-the-hill prostitute, to think of it. So I went over, tapped her on the shoulder and said, "Can I take the whistle until you leave, please?" She just ignored me, as I expected. So again I said the same thing. This time she smiled at me with her chessboard teeth. Well, that would be if chessboards were black and yellow, as opposed to black and white. Laughed and said, "What was that you wanted, son? My naked body rubbed all over you?" The very thought of her wrinkled, leather-skinned body mixed with the smell of her breath was almost enough to make me heave. "Beautiful as you are, I'm afraid I must decline your very tempting offer," I replied, my tone sarcastic. She cackled like a witch on acid, which just made the acrid smell of her breath all the worse. You could just tell by looking, or even smelling this horror, that she'd had more cock than Bernard Matthews.